Hope you guys like the spooky new lighting. Today we're talking about another custom katana. I know that you guys probably like movies like Kill Bill and anime like Demon Slayer, and there are scenes in that media where the protagonist gets to build their own custom katana, and I've always been fascinated with the concept of making my own katana. It makes you feel like a main character. Before there were companies that had these online builders, it was pretty expensive and hard to find somebody who would put together a katana for you, and if they did, they were a craftsman, a single craftsman mostly, and you would be spending upwards, starting out, probably $2,000, definitely more than that if you wanted something fancy. And half the time you would get denied anyway because it's one guy, maybe two, that are making these swords, and they only have so much time in the year to be able to make these. But we're living in the golden age of katanas. Now you can go to online websites and pick a la carte what you want on your sword, such as your sword steel, the color, the grip style, and everything. A few weeks ago, we had a sword come in from a company called Romance of Men that we designed ourselves, and we reviewed it here. However, shortly after, I was able to customize another katana with another company known as SWORDIS. SWORDIS's website has a plethora of well-known brands such as Hanwei and many others. They sell more than just katanas to include European and other cultural swords as well. But of course, what interested me most was their custom katana builder. They use an a la carte system that lets you pick, and man, the choices I had it almost seemed endless. It took me hours to figure out exactly the right combination that I wanted to try. Now, full transparency, SWORDIS did allow me to build this katana for free, and if you think that makes me a little more biased, I understand, but I am going to review this katana with the least amount of bias as possible. I want all sword manufacturers that send me swords to improve their craft, so I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to say exactly what I do like and what I don't like. So how about we shed a little bit more light on this sword and see what it's made of. So the sword itself, I wanted to have kind of a fire theme to it, so that's why there's a lot of red that you see on it. But I am very impressed with how it came. It just looks really, really good. I chose all the different parts that are on the sword myself. I wanted certain aspects of the sword to pop more than others, so I was able to do that. But if you want to make a super gaudy version of a sword, you definitely can do that on the site. The options on the site were staggering. It is so many different things you can choose from, different wraps, different ornaments, different subas, different sayas. They did a really good job making the selection more customizable for the user. There are different steel types you can choose from, and it looks like they use, I believe it was Shadow Dancer is one of the makers of the swords, and you can get a more premium katana from them for a higher price. You can go to a mid-range, and you can also go to a more budget-friendly. So they have options for everybody. It really depends on how much of the hamon and polish you're going to want on it, and also how durable you want the sword. If you're going to be using it for harder targets, you're probably going to want the tool steels. But if you want something that has the beauty of a traditional katana, the T10 and a few of the other types of steels where they can actually put the temper line on it, those are the ones you're going to want to go with. But let's pull this thing out and see how it looks. Unsheathing the sword, I can already tell you that the seal between the koiguchi and the habaki is tight. So you really do have to push with your thumb to get it out, and that's always a good sign to me. I would never want to get a katana that fits loosely right out of the box because it could fall right on the floor. Pulling the blade out, I chose not to have a fuller on this one, so as you can tell, this is a full-bodied blade, and the hamon like pops like crazy. We'll do some close-ups in a little bit just to show you guys. But it is very prominent. I don't know if this was like an extra acid etch that they did on it, but it's beautiful. It's really good. I chose the battle wrap, which is where the triangular folds don't continue into the center, and that typically is my favorite way of having a katana. I like the other wraps as well, but this just feels really good, and it looks really good, looks unique. And in the hands, light, very light. I'm going to also post up the exact configuration that this is set up in, so if you want to replicate this sword, you'll have every single piece that you need to do that listed in the comments. I like the way it feels. I can stop the blade, doesn't feel heavy. Normally when you have a sword with no bohi, the fuller, you can feel a lot more weight behind the sword. This doesn't really feel any heavier than the Romance of Men sword that we just got, but it doesn't have the fuller. So very impressed with that. The sword feels light in the hands. The blade looks mean. Like when you look at it from this point of view, it looks so like fillet thin, but it doesn't feel thin. It doesn't feel like a flimsy sword. And I'm hoping that means this is going to cut pretty well. Drawing with it is pretty natural as well. It doesn't feel any different than any other high quality sword that I've practiced with. You can definitely feel the weight. It doesn't feel like it's carrying through where it would hurt my wrist or hurt my arm. So being able to draw feels very natural. I want to try a little test real quick. Mike is telling me that there's a test that you can tell how well the saya is made to the sword. So for example, if you're getting a sword made by an artisan and he's only making that one sword for you, the saya is going to be made to the katana. But many of these build your own formats are going to be budget friendly, meaning these are going to be some slightly mass produced and some machine and some handmade pieces. So I'm curious to see how tight the saya is to the sword. So let's try it. So you can hear a bit of that rattle going on. It's actually not bad. I thought it would actually be wiggling like a lot in there, but you can hear it near the top that there's a bit of rattle. So what that tells me is this is still a saya that was mass produced for a myriad of different blade shapes, but they probably made a template and then tightened up the fittings a little bit near the end right here. But I would say near here, it's gonna be pretty much for a myriad of different blades. I'm still pretty impressed with what they sent because the price that I would have paid for something like this is under $500. I am not expecting an artisan level of detail with $500. Once I get into the $1,000 range, I'm expecting a lot more out of my katana. How about we see how sharp this sword is out of the box? All right, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so touching the edge when I first got it, I kind of was like, I don't know if it's actually as sharp as some of the other swords that we've gotten. That was effortless. Let's do it again. Okay, so we're getting some inconclusive results on it. The first one that I did was really easy, but I'm noticing that when I drag this across, I mean, it still feels really sharp. Yeah, so you're seeing a little bit of tearing going on right there. I mean, it's still cutting through, but look, I'm gonna drag this across, and normally on the other swords that we've gotten, this would have already started, but look at that. Look, I can see the tear. So take a look at the jaggedness of that, right? Now, this sword is what I would call battlefield sharp. This is not going to be a razor blade, and this might make this sword a little bit more chip resistant on the edge, but this is nowhere near as sharp as some of the swords I've gotten. So kind of already a first thing, if I'm gonna be using this for tamashigiri or any other kind of cutting, I'm gonna want this thing to be pretty sharp to make sure that I'm going through my targets effortlessly. Which is crazy because it does feel very sharp to the finger, but I can already tell from the paper that this is having some trouble going through. If you look at that, yeah, it's tearing it. That first one went through effortlessly, but that tear tells me that the edge probably needs a little bit more honing. I don't think the edge needs to be reformed. It just needs probably some stropping and maybe some extra polishing. Now, there isn't any secondary bevel that I can see on the katanas, and honestly, at this point in the game, there shouldn't be any. Most katana makers have that down, but at the same time, I would like to see a little bit more sharpness out of the box from this one.
If you look at it under the light, you can see the edge. Although it looks and feels sharp, it's just a very like honed roll, it almost looks like to me. Going down the edge in the light, you realistically shouldn't see anything here when you're looking down it.
Yeah.
And that means that it's almost rolled some if you look at it under that light. You see how the edge is shining? The edge shouldn't shine on the top.
I know, it's not a fatal flaw in this at all. This is like nitpicking at this point for a perfect edge. But again, if I'm gonna use this for any kind of competition cutting or even backyard cutting, I don't want my edge to drag on things at all. I don't want it to chew through things. I want it to slice cleanly. So a very keen edge is extremely important out of box for me for a katana. Another thing is to get a katana to be as sharp as it was out of box is both really difficult and very expensive if you pay someone else to do it. So it's not like I can get a Canonian work sharp and just put another edge on this, because there's gonna be a glaring secondary bevel on it. I have to hire someone to not only resharpen this, but to repolish it to make sure that the hamon shows through again. So resharpening a katana, not a cheap feat, and I would much prefer it to be as sharp and as honed out of box as possible. Starting with the pommel, I chose a textured pommel that isn't too ornate, and I think that that lends to letting the rest of the sword pop, and I really like the small little details that they were able to put on this. Moving to the ska, I used a red Samegawa, that is the red stingray skin you're seeing there, and this has what is known as a battle wrap. So the top and the bottom portion are going to have those very noticeable triangular windows, but the center with the ornament are going to be wrapped without the triangular windows. This feels the most comfortable to me, and I like the way that it looks because it looks unique. It looks different from other katanas. This sword is rather unique because most modern katanas that I've purchased have 2 mekugi pins through them, but this one only has 1, which is more traditional to what we find in antiques. And that mekugi is right there near the guard. The tsuba is one of the plainer designs. It is the iron design. I didn't pick anything that had a lot of ornate features on it because, again, I wanted the sword itself to pop, especially that red tsuka and the saya. But I like this because I wanted a flame-themed katana, and this tsuba definitely looks like a flame, and I love it. You'll notice the 2 silver-colored seppa rings on either side of the guard, and going down to the habaki, this is a plain silver-colored habaki, but they have so many different options for this. You can go with the traditional brass, and they have ones with inlays as well. But I tend to like my swords a little bit plainer looking on some of the furniture. Now moving down to this gorgeous blade, look at that hamon. That hamon pops. You can see it at every single angle. It's not subtle at all. It has a very defined crest that you can see, that separator, and that might be due to some acid etching, I'm not sure, but that is a real temper line. That is definitely not cosmetic. And moving down that blade, you'll notice the absence of any sort of fuller, making this a full weighted cutter. And all the way down to that kisaki right there, and that is a geometric kisaki. That is real, that is not etched on. Just beautiful work. Coming back up. Beautiful work, SWORDIS. Love the sword. All right, the sword weighs in at just over 2 pounds. So this is a little bit heavier than the Romance of Men sword we had, but it's very close. This is probably why this sword feels so good, but it makes sense because there isn't a fuller. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit more heavy without the fuller because we've had other katanas that have the bohi going in there, and they're heavier than this. But that's probably why this sword feels so good, and the sword's thinness comparatively to other swords, I think that's why this feels so good in the hands. I have a feeling this is going to zip through some targets. All right, we've got the looks, we've got the weight. I know why you guys are here. Let's see how this cuts. Come on. It's first take. It's not bad. That's cool. I'm so afraid of hitting the stand. Oh, shit. This is going to be a challenge. Powerade bottles are notoriously terrible to cut. They're just harder plastic, so we're going to see if it can cut through. I don't think I've ever had a Powerade bottle stay after cutting it. Normally they fly off even if they do cut. That was clean. All right, this is a half-filled bottle, so we're gonna do a thrust and a cut. No effort.
God.
That was not the part with no water in it, too. I'm gonna try it again before it runs out. It cut itself. Big protein. Is it enough protein to stop a katana? Let's find out. Nope. So as you guys saw, the SWORDIS custom katana sang through every bottle that we used, and it went through tatami, no problem at all. We didn't have bamboo this time, but this time we finally had some tatami mats. We usually don't have any in the building, but we were able to get some, and I'm very impressed with how this cut. The slightly heavier blade made the tatami no match at all. It was able to sing through, and there is no deformation on the blade at all. There shouldn't be with the type of targets we cut, but the tatami that we were cutting through did not have any bamboo cores in them. I would like to see how this would cut through bamboo. Maybe we'll do it in the future, but if you're going to be doing cutting competitions, designing your own blade for the competitions that you're going to be competing in is pretty cool. So who do I think this blade is for? If you're looking to design your own blade with a lot of options, if you have always wanted a katana that had every single option you could possibly want, from your blade steel choice, colors, the saya type, and even the length of the blade itself, SWORDIS is going to be the site that I recommend right now. So definitely check them out. The link will be in the description. Exciting news, guys. I'm also going to be starting a brand new sword channel just for katanas and kenjutsu. So that link will also be in the description or up here. If you're really into Japanese culture, if you're into kenjutsu, Japanese swordsmanship, kendo, iaido, anything like that, or you just want to collect katanas, it's definitely going to be a channel that you'll be interested in. So I'd appreciate the like and subscribe to that. Other than that, I got nothing else for you guys. Bye.